Good evening and welcome to Current Issues. I'm your host, Hesham Tillawi. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, well, Israel is bombing Gaza again, and civilian casualties, 5 people died. We did not see anyone calling for a no-flight zone over Gaza. Of course, anything Israel does, you will find many justification for its actions in the United States media. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we will be speaking about the Gaza bombing. We're going to take a break a little bit from Libya and the other actions that are going on in the Middle East, but we will concentrate on what is happening in Gaza. 2 things are happening. The first one was the Goldstone report that we have done a couple of programs about the Goldstone reports and what it was. The Goldstone report was a United Nations commissioned report done by Judge Goldstone, and he had very much said in his report, he concluded that Israel had committed crimes against humanity and war crimes, which actually these charges are supposedly punishable by international law. That is, if you can find someone that can actually enforce laws against humanity by the Israelis. You will find many who will jump to save civilians, but when it comes to the Israelis, no one will even consider the victims as humans, much less fight for their human rights. The judge apparently had written an op-ed in the New York Times over the weekend, and or I think it was probably Monday. But what happened in that op-ed, he said that he had received other information from the Israelis, 2 years after the fact, and after the Israelis would not even consider talking to him or cooperating with him. Yet 2 years later, the Israelis have presented him apparently with evidence to show that in one instant, now remember, over 1,400 people were slaughtered by the Israeli army. Most of them were civilians. Most of them were women and children. And very much this judge, who is, by the way, he's Jewish, from South Africa, he had decided that Israel actually committed war crimes. Now, in one of those instances that Israel was charged with war crimes or found guilty of war crimes by the commission is the story of a family called the Samuni family, which is, the story goes like this. The Israeli army went in there and told this family, a huge family, to gather in one house. They got them out of their houses into one house, and then they bombed the house where over 20 of the same family were killed. Now the Israelis saying they presented information or evidence to this judge 2 years after the fact that that it was not deliberate, the targeting of that house, but it was a mistake by their soldiers. Now, well, so the judge wrote an op-ed article in the New York Times saying that the new evidence that he has, he might actually look at that particular incident, that one part of a 500-page report, to basically say that, okay, the Israelis did their investigation and they said that it was not deliberate, it was a mistake. Well, the Israelis actually took that report and told the world in the last days, with their cronies in the American media and others, that Judge Goldstone had retracted his report, and they went to the world. Even the European Union considered actually pulling its support of that report, because the Israelis said that, hey, look, actually those are children from the Samuni family that you're looking at. And this is the Goldstone report, where they found with this investigation that Israel was actually guilty of war crimes. But the judge, like I said, wrote this article, and the Israelis went and told their cronies in the media that the judge very much had retracted the report, as if he did not, I mean, if this report was still alive, and it's still alive, by the way. It's not, the Judge Goldstone did not retract that, and even with what he had written in the New York Times, yesterday, in an interview, he said, I did not retract not even one part of the report, that he still, even with whatever the Israelis had given him, and even after he wrote that op-ed, he still says that none of the report is actually retracted, or he's even thinking of retracting. But the media, like I said, and even the our ambassador to the United Nations, Susan Rice, she even considered, and she was talking to Congress about it, that, hey, look, the Israelis are not guilty. You know, this is a proof that we, the United States of America, is very much a puppet state for Israel, because we also will follow their lies. You know, they lied to the world about the report, and now the United States followed and protected their lies. Well, today, ladies and gentlemen, the Israeli army, or the Israeli Air Force, actually bombed Gaza and killed 5 people and injured many. The report, it doesn't matter the Goldstone report or whose report, it is not going to make a difference, because you can have all the reports that you want, you can show all the pictures that you want, you can see all the videos that you want, and nobody is going to be able to actually control the Israelis, much less bring them to court to face those charges. You know, but we have a bogus charges against Arab countries, and all the way, all of a sudden, you have the United States and its cronies around the world willing to go on bomb. Where is the no-flight zone over Gaza? One needed to be there a long time ago. Where are the United States Air Force and Navies and Marines to go in and protect the civilians? Because remember what President Obama said. He said, we have to go and protect the civilians. It's the right thing to do. That's what he said. Talking about Libya, he said, it's the right thing to do. It's who we are. Civilian protectors. Yeah, let him play that emotion game on you now. Let him even say something about the civilians in Gaza and see what happens to him. Well, tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we will be joined shortly by Ken O'Keefe, Ken Nicholas O'Keefe. He's an Irish-American activist, and he's a former United States Marine, by the way. Ken actually been on the program before. We talked to him when the Gaza flotilla raid, the Turkish flotilla, when the Israelis raided the Mavi Marmara ship. He was on that ship, and actually he was able to save a couple of Israeli soldiers' lives by disarming them of their guns, which was probably, it may have caused or proven to be fatal to their life. So he took their guns away, he disarmed them, and they were able to live. So we're going to talk to Ken O'Keefe, because Ken O'Keefe, he is involved in a project. He has been involved with many projects in Gaza, but one particular project actually deals with the family that Judge Goldstone actually talked about, and the family that the Israelis have lied and said, oh, this was a mistake, it was not deliberate. And we're going to talk to Ken O'Keefe about what's going on in Gaza today, because I guarantee you he did not get much sleep because of the bombings and the shellings of Gaza tonight. And I understand we do have Ken with us online from Gaza. Ken, welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you, my brother. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Ken, before we get into the Goldstone report, let's tell us what's going on in Gaza. What happened today?
Well, it's just the latest in what is an ongoing and largely unreported series of bombing and killings that Israel is involved in. It's more bombs dropped throughout Gaza today, and many killed, and probably more to be killed in the coming hours. And who knows just how bad it's going to get. But it's a little bit bigger than normal. But we usually have low-level killings where one person maybe is killed and it doesn't make the news. I think Israel's gone back to its normal policy of the single-digit killings. It doesn't want to go into double-digit killings for a day. It gets a little bit too much negative attention that way. So, but they're coming pretty hard tonight, and I don't know. It's a very serious situation.
Okay. So, how come we don't? I mean, I know you the answer to this one, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Everybody knows the answer to this question, actually. How come we don't see voices asking for no-flight zone over Gaza?
Yeah, well, we still live in a world of tyranny, really, where impunity is the rule of the day, and if you're a favored nation like Israel, you get away with bloody murder. And, none of the people who are in any positions of power who could affect some significant change and real justice, none of them are going to do that because they're all serving another interest aside from the people, that's for sure. We can argue about what and who they're serving, but it's kind of like a kid, a spoiled brat kid that gets away with hell. If you allow a child to get away with murder, over and over again, the child doesn't know any better, and it just does whatever it wants. That pretty much explains Israel from day one. In fact, from before the formation of Israel, it's been getting away with bloody murder from the terrorism that it was built on. Israel has been running roughshod over the Palestinians and others for a long, long time, and you can hardly blame them. In fact, myself, I'm sick and tired of blaming Israel. Really, they're like a sick, psychologically demented patient. I mean, they can't even help themselves. Quite frankly, they know not what they do. We know this by now. I mean, it's like entering into an alternate universe when you listen to them talk about what they do. You hear the Israelis talk about, for instance, when they killed several kids in one go with a tank shell, kids that were playing football. Then you hear them talk about how we regret the loss of life and things like that. It's just a lie. I mean, I'd have more respect for a mass murderer that was at least honest. Just be honest about it and say you really don't care at all, and these people are subhuman in your eyes, and good riddance.
Okay.
It would be more honest. But no.
Now,
at least,
okay. Ken, in the last couple of days, there was a lot of talk about the Goldstone report being retracted or part of it being retracted. Now, you have been involved with that family that the report actually talked about, and the supposedly the op-ed from Judge Goldstone actually was talking about them, the Simoni family. Tell us the story of the Simoni family, of exactly what happened, and now the Israelis are coming back and saying, this was a mistake, but I know you did an investigation there yourself a couple of days ago, and you spoke with the Simoni family, and now to tell us the story of the Simoni family and why you think the Israelis are lying when they said it was not deliberate.
Well, the techniques of getting to the truth of the matter are pretty scientific. You know, there are a lot of ways to try and verify whether people are lying or not, especially if you've got a crime alleged as in the one that was committed against the Samudi family. I mean, we have in the space of a few days, 29 family members that were killed, and the circumstances of their death has been corroborated by literally well over 100 witnesses, which are the family members themselves, and all of them have the same story because they all experienced the same thing. During Operation Cast Lead, the Israelis came into the area they live, Zaytun. This is an area that's very, very typically got large concentration of Israelis when they conduct incursions. And during Cast Lead, the Samudi family was all directed to stay off the streets and ultimately to collect in one home. And 97 family members collected in one home, as they were told. And while they were all collected in the home, it was shelled. And about 22 family members were killed right away. And the remaining family members were made to live next to the corpses of their loved ones. In many cases, you had children who were laying next to their parents, and parents laying next to their children who were dead or dying. And when attempts were made to try and get the injured out, including trying to communicate with the Israelis by going out into the streets with a white flag, they were shot at. In one case, you had Ahmed Samuni, little 4-year-old Ahmed Samuni, who was shot twice in the chest, within a few meters of the Israeli soldiers shot in the chest. The husband of Zainat Samuni, who has become the whole family of Zainat have become really close friends, experienced, the murder of their father and 4-year-old Ahmed. So, I mean, they're still very much affected by this. It really is hard to exaggerate just how horrendous the situation was for 4 days in winter with, all of these family members collected together in the cold, people injured, lying next to the corpses of their loved ones. For days, they were prevented from getting any medical attention. No ambulances or paramedics were allowed in, and they were not allowed out. Ahmed Samuni died in the arms of his mother over a day and a half because he was not allowed to get any help. And this is the kind of thing that happened. And it's all corroborated by the family members themselves and what few witnesses could actually bear witness to this outside of the family. And, to suggest that this was an accident, you can try and convince other people, but, the video that we made, if you show some of your viewers will get to see it, but I leave it to the people to judge. Are these kids lying? Are these people lying? If you believe that, I think you'll believe anything. You probably have already got an agenda and you've made up your mind. We don't have to listen to the Samuni family. We can simply watch the video of white phosphorus bombs blowing up over one of the most densely populated cities in the world, in Gaza City and other parts of Gaza. You don't need to listen to anyone. Just look at it for yourself. For the Israelis to say they regret loss of life when white phosphorus bombs are blowing up over Gaza City, which is over half of the population is children, 800,000 plus children. I mean, I don't know how anyone can seriously even think to believe such things. You really have to be quite brainwashed and indoctrinated to buy such stuff.
It makes me sick to even live in this world with this double standard of some people are considered civilians and the world want to save them, but others, because Israel is the murderer here, then they don't even consider them as civilians. Now, you have been involved in a project, though, with the Samuni family. You mind telling us what that project is?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do that. When I came here, my agenda really is to break this blockade. That's been my focus, and one of the things that I learned in the Marine Corps, which I actually really respect, is focus on a mission. It's easy to get distracted, and it really undercuts our ability to focus on the mission and get things done when we don't focus. So when I came here, I actually did not have plans to go see the Samuni family because their story is pretty well known. Of course, many Americans wouldn't be aware of their story, but their story has been covered. Not as well as it should have been, but still it's been covered. But as it turns out, it was planned for me to come to see the family, and so I did, and I listened to the story again, which I had heard of. And it just so happened that, I came back again a second time, and before you knew it, I was coming back regularly, and it just really kind of crept up on me that there was this incredible story that many people knew, and I just realized that this family was not taken care of yet. There has been things done to help the family, but there's many things that haven't happened. In some of the homes are still not rebuilt. Ones that were destroyed during Calf Lead. Their education is suffered hugely. These kids have obviously been through great trauma, and many of them were really bright and exceptional students before Operation Calf Lead, but virtually all of them have really gone down big time. Many of the kids don't even care about school. They don't like it, and they just don't really care and want to do anything with regard to school. And I couldn't believe, getting to know this family more, that somebody hadn't come in and really just decided to take care of this family. I would have thought, even for the sake of vanity, that some rich Arab or somebody would have come in and said, tell their handlers, like, hey, look, whatever they need, go ahead and take care of it. I'm just shocked. As an example, again, I'll mention Zainat Samuni, who lost her little son, 4-year-old son, Ahmed, and her husband. Well, they also have a daughter, Amal, who's 11 years old. She's got fragments of an Israeli rocket to this day still stuck in her head. She can feel the metal moving around in her head, and she's bleeding from her nose certain days. She has other issues with hearing, vision, and dizzy spells. It's not been fixed. And I mean, this is just one of the things that really I came to realize. I was just absolutely shocked that these things had not been sorted, that nobody had actually come in and experienced this. And there's some famous people who've actually been through here, and they've, expressed their sympathy or empathy, whatever you want to call it, and said they would help, and they haven't done as much as they could. And I just realized, I'm in a position to do something. I've got to at least do the best I can to try and help out this family. So I made a decision to do that, and it really was not in the plans. But I've realized that, there's a good amount of people out there who appreciate whatever it is that they think I'm trying to do. I certainly am pretty straightforward about what it is that I want. I really want justice in this world and ultimately peace. But I made a decision to try and help this family, and people have really responded. It's been good. We're getting things done, and we planted 29 olive trees for a small olive tree orchard. That was the first step, and we requested money for that and ended up getting quite a bit more than was required. And so we built a playground with the extra money, and the kids play in that playground every day. They absolutely love it, and it's really something incredible. I can tell you, every time I come here, seeing these kids smiling and playing and shouting and playing, it is quite a blessing to do this. But once we built the playground, the parents were all very, very grateful, but they all said the same thing, that look, what we need is proper education for these kids and some psychological help, because they're all suffering. Not just the kids, the parents. You can imagine if you saw your 4-year-old son shot in front of your eyes, along with your husband, and left as a single mom trying to take care of 6 kids. This is not easy, and the parents have to try and keep it together as well for the children. So they're all suffering, and I just made a decision that this is really, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, I've looked into the darkness of this world. I'm not naive at all. I've seen just how dark and sinister this world is, but it still does shock me that this situation with the Sunnis has not been sorted, and ultimately it's going to happen. We're going to sort out this family, and the ultimate goal is not just to help the Sunni family, but to create a model of what should be for all of the kids here in Palestine. They should all have first-class education, and they should all have the psychological help they need from the trauma that they're experiencing, as in right now. And just imparting on this particular point, I can assure you that the kids of the Sunni family, many of them, like untold amounts of children in Gaza, will be wetting themselves tonight, and they'll be screaming when they hear those planes, and they hear the bombs, and they hear the helicopters, and they hear the drones. They're terrified. And this is what's happening in Gaza right now. And I ask everyone who's listening, what would you do if this was happening to your children? Not just for a day or a week or a month or a year, but for years and years and decades. This is what the Palestinian people deal with. I don't know what other people think, but if it was happening to me, I'd be pretty damn pissed off.
Now, this thing with what Israel is doing now, are you expecting this to be a prolonged operation for Israel? Are they talking about an incursion here? What is going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to guess, but what I do know is this: Israel is, as a state, dependent upon perpetual conflict. Its whole function is to maintain perpetual conflict, and I defy anyone who says otherwise to explain to me this. If you were an observer of Israel's policies and you genuinely believed that the Israelis wanted peace, then you're asking a person who would be observing to be one of two things. One, you'd be asking for a person to believe that the Israelis are about as stupid as a bag of cement, that they are so stupid that they honestly think that by carrying out policies such as stealing people's land, building walls, arresting them with no due process, extrajudicial killings, bombing people with white phosphorus, using depleted uranium, murdering people in cold blood in front of their families, all of this type of stuff, that somehow, some way, the Israelis think that this is going to lead to peace someday, then you're asking me to believe that the Israelis are idiots. I don't believe that. They make a lot of stupid mistakes, but I don't believe the Israelis are idiots. The other option would be that they're lying, that when they say they want peace, actually they don't want peace. What they want is perpetual conflict. And that's obviously what's happening here. The Israelis do not want peace, and they certainly don't want a just peace. So what they do is continually stir things up to make sure they get that little bit of resistance that will give them the excuse to do what they want to do, which is to maintain perpetual conflict and justify
Ken,
the insanity of the occupation.
The people in Gaza, are they, what is the word on the streets? Are they getting ready to hunker down for a war well, actually, we don't call it a war, with another slaughter? What do people are saying? Are they preparing for this?
Yeah, there are people who believe that yes, this one could be really quite serious, but the Raber sackling is pretty continuous. Israel says a lot of things and continually threatens. It's part of the psychological operations of Israel, the continual state of terrorizing your victim. I mean, again, the children are terrorized all the time. I'm hearing drones flying overhead right now. And these things, maybe to an American, when you hear a jet flying overhead, you think it's my country defending myself and all this kind of ridiculous stuff. it's a totally different thing for somebody in Palestine or Iraq or Afghanistan. I mean, that sound is quite terrifying, especially for people who've been through what the Sunni family has been through, and everybody else for that matter here. So to answer your question, I think the people here are prepared for anything. They wouldn't be surprised if they've been through incredible violence on behalf of the Israelis before. So they're prepared for whatever comes their way. But whether or not they know for sure, is this going to be another calf led? I mean, I don't know anybody who would claim to know that for sure. But I have to say, what Israel has right now is there's a lot of reason to believe that they might actually carry out some sort of calf led, even though it would make no sense and it will be a PR disaster for them. We have this flotilla that's coming, and this flotilla that's coming in May is hugely problematic for the Israelis. I'm a huge advocate of direct action. As you know, probably I was on the flotilla last time on the Mavi Marmara, and this one is going to be a massive problem for the Israelis. So it would be quite useful for them to be engaged in another
Ken, did we lose him? Well, we may have lost him. We'll try to get him back. Of course, we did not even think that we're going to have him at all tonight because of what is happening with in Gaza, and we probably lost transmission there with Ken. We'll try to get him back on, but this is the thing that goes on, ladies and gentlemen, where children are dying, and they have been dying for many years, but yet you have people in the United States here are wanting to jump, and because it's the right thing, even though it's a lie. The whole thing that you have been hearing is very much lies, and yet it was a lie to go. If we would have listened to Ken O'Keefe, yes, this former U.S. Marine who back in 2003 actually went to Iraq. In the he had a group, the Human Shield to Iraq project. It's basically he went there with a bunch of people, and they wanted to stop the United States from bombing, but the United States started bombing. If we would have listened to Ken O'Keefe back then, we probably would not have gone to war against Iraq. We would have saved over 1 million Iraqis, saved over $1 trillion of your hard-earned money and your children's hard-earned money, because it's going to take many, many years before we actually get to pay for the Iraq war. And we could have saved tens of thousands of lives right here in the United States if we would have just listened to Ken when he went as part of the Iraqi Human Shield group. But do we have him back? Ken, are you back with us?
Yes, I'm back, brother. This
Okay.
is to be expected.
Yeah, well,
every time I do any interview of any length, it gets cut off usually more than once.
okay. Very good. Ken, stay with us. We're going to go to the phones. We do have, let's go to the phones. We have Winston calling on line one. Winston, you got a question for Ken?
I have a question for both of you. And that the United Nations is very close to recognizing Palestine as a state.
Okay.
Could you give me explain the ramifications if they do, and I'll hang up and listen.
Okay. Ken, did you hear the question?
Yes, if who recognizes Palestine as a state? Was that
Yeah,
the question?
what would the ramification be if the United Nations actually does go through with this and recognizes Palestine as an independent state?
Well, I've said this publicly, and I stand by it 100%. I believe that the so-called two-state solution, even back in the days of Oslo, back in the 90s, I think would have been a disaster of the second Nakba. If you had a small, impoverished no military Palestinian state, not contiguous with Gaza and the West Bank, separated. You'd always be one rocket attack away from the fourth largest military in the world justifying itself to come in and pummel the Palestinians. And I just cannot see that being avoided at all. I don't see any solution in the so-called two-state solution at all. I see it as a disaster. I hope it never happens, quite frankly, and I see only one solution, and it's actually a microcosm of what needs to happen in this world, and that is, we need to reach a point where we understand that we live on planet Earth. As the Japan incident has proven, if you have a problem in Japan with nuclear power, it doesn't affect Japan. The radiation that's blowing all over the atmosphere and traveling through the sea doesn't know anything about these stupid little lines we've drawn up all over the place. I mean, we live on planet Earth, and if there's a nuclear explosion, it's going to affect everybody on planet Earth. And everything we do is interconnected. So I believe there needs to be one state. As impossible as that is, quite frankly, and there are Palestinians who will say they could never live with the Israelis, and you could understand that if you've heard what I've said earlier about, say, Natsumuni and others who've experienced what they have. But I believe that the two-state solution is a disaster, and I think all the proof that we need to be able to understand that is who's endorsing a two-state solution. Virtually every U.S. president, has endorsed a two-state solution. Hillary Clinton endorses it. The United Nations endorses it. All of the corrupt politicians of the EU endorse it. I mean, I don't know about other people, but that's proof enough for me to tell you, to say that this is not good for the Palestinians. But, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but that's mine.
Okay. Now, let's get back to the Goldstone report. How did you feel when you first heard that Judge Goldstone may have retracted part of his report? And how did the Simoni family receive that news, which was, by the way, a bogus news that Israel has created, that Judge Goldstone has retracted anything? How did you feel, and how did they feel?
Yeah, well, like a lot of people, I just heard it secondhand, and when I took the time to read it, I realized that, it's not retraction, that's for sure, but, he said things that clearly would allow the Israelis to exploit it, to be used as some sort of retraction. And, I think it would be beyond ridiculous for us to ignore the very distinct possibility that he's been pressured and coerced. He may have had his family threatened. I mean, again, this is like this delusional state that unfortunately the very large percentage of people on this planet are living in. I myself was one of those people as well. But, Israel is capable of anything. I mean, it would be ridiculous for people to think that the Israeli state wouldn't threaten his family and tell, Goldstone, hey, guess what? We've had enough of your report, and if you don't do what we want you to do, we're going to take care of one of your family members or a few of your family members. I mean, that's a possibility.
Which of course they can do. The whole thing was over a phone call by some guy from the foreign ministry there in Israel. Talked to the judge to thank him for the op-ed in the New York Times, and very much that was it. The judge did not discuss the report with him. He did not. The judge very much actually expressed his love for Israel, and that was it. That was the whole phone call. But they went out to say that, oh yeah, we talked to Judge Goldstone and he retracted the report. Well, yesterday, Judge Goldstone, the Boston Globe have reported that in an interview, he very much said, no, I did not retract anything. And as a matter of fact, even the part that he wrote the op-ed about, he said, even though he wrote the op-ed about it based on what he had seen, he's still not considering and will not consider actually changing anything in the report. And that's where Judge Goldstone stands right now, that he is not considering changing any part in
in the report. But you know what? I mean, the truth is, let's just say the truth here. It doesn't matter what the report say or said. Nothing is going to happen. So if he retracts the whole report or if he keeps it, it's doing nothing but collecting dust. Who's going to enforce that report? What the Israelis are afraid of. But they wanted to play this. I mean, they knew all along that no one is going to actually force them to do anything, but they wanted to play the, like a guy who's wrongly charged with something. He wants the sympathy. They wanted to put themselves in the victim I guess, side that, hey, we were victimized because we were wrongly charged. And that's basically what Israel wants to get out of this. So when they go back again to Gaza to do more killings, actually people will look at them and say, well, yeah, they were justified in slaughtering 1,400 people. So for sure they're justified now. Now, do you think this was deliberate use of the media by Israel to basically cover up what they are about to do in Gaza, or just one of their media stunts?
Yeah, well, I think, there's so many illusions in this world. It's hard in the space of a short conversation like this to really get into depth about the way I see the way the world functions. But, on the surface, yes, Israel is a lot of people say Israel doesn't care. Well, they do, actually. They invest a lot into trying to fool people into believing all sorts of nonsense, and they've been getting away with it largely for decades. The interests that control the Zionist project are intrinsically linked to Hollywood and the mass media and politicians around the world and Western powers in particular. I mean, they have very strong ties, and part of the relationship is fostering these illusions about the Israeli state and the victimhood status that they've claimed ever since the Holocaust. So this is just the latest chapter in ongoing manipulations and games to try and fool people. And I think Goldstone, there must have been some pretty intense pressure, I would have thought, on him. The one thing that he said that was, in a way, sort of not a retraction, but sort of a dismissal of his own report was that he accepted what the Israelis have said because they have an investigation. Essentially, the commander in charge falsely ordered the hit on the Samuni family home based on a faulty drone image, and I mean. This is just beggars belief. I mean, of course, they can say anything. They can say that all they want, but, okay, how does that explain little Ahmed getting shot in the chest twice in front of his mother?
Yeah.
Was that also an accident?
Ken, my problem with what the judge actually has done, and I agree with you that he was under tremendous amount of pressure to actually even write that op-ed in the New York Times. But I really think, after 2 years, you're presenting evidence, not even evidence, you're presenting an investigation that they, the murderers, have actually executed themselves. The judge should not even, he should have just threw it away, because when he went to do his report, they would not even talk to him. So if their officer had actually made a mistake, how come they did not say that from the beginning? How come they wait for 2 years after and a year and a half after the investigation to actually say something about that, oh, by the way, there was a mistake? I mean, that kind of mistake should have been known even before Goldstone did his investigation. The Israelis should have known that one of their officers had made a mistake, if in fact actually he had made a mistake. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it's really just an amazing game. I mean, it really is quite comical if it weren't so tragic.
Yeah, it is. It is comical.
It kind of.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me really of this ridiculous idea in America. I don't live there anymore, but I grew up there and lived there for many years and have watched the mainstream media. Of course, I didn't watch the media for news. I watch it to see what the propaganda is and what the agenda is, and that's all it's good for. It's quite useful for that purpose. But the idea that the media is all left. You know, they're all left, and the right wingers are really grateful for Fox because great, now there's somebody who represents our right interest. This is kind of similar to the whole idea like the UN is really anti-Israel. It's always been an enemy of Israel, and this is ridiculous. It was the UN that created this conflict in the first place with the UN.
And it was the UN that created Israel.
Exactly. I mean, it was virtually their first act. To say that it's a little play. All the world is a stage, and us, stupid people are supposed to believe this stuff. I mean, it's really comedy. You've got to be joking with me. It's a little game they play, and back in the back rooms, they're sitting there smoking their cigars, laughing their asses off, and all us stupid peons who buy into this stuff.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
just pure theater.
Well, Ken, I guess we're gonna have to end it here because we do want to show some of your the video that you had done with the Samuni family. So, my friend, all I have time to say is thank you very much for waking up in the middle of the night to be with us. You probably could not even go to sleep tonight, but stay safe, and hopefully we will have you back here soon.
Thank you, my brother. I tell you what, in this ever-changing world, the role of the truth teller is one of the most important, if not the most important role there is. So thank you very much for doing what you're doing. It's an extremely important job. Love and respect to you, all right?
Thank you. Thank you. Stay safe and good night. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we only have like a few minutes left, but we do want to show this little clip of the video that actually Ken had done after he heard that Judge Goldstone had retracted. But of course, the whole world, most of you don't even know what the Goldstone report was until this week, because it was against Israel. So not too many in the mainstream media actually had reported anything on the Goldstone report. But the Goldstone report was an investigation that actually said Israel committed genocide. Israel committed war crimes. Israel committed crimes against humanity. But you did not hear about it. But now, because it was bogus news that it was retracted, you probably heard it because it was all over the news. Let's go ahead and play the response from the Samuni family with Ken from Gaza.
We came to the conclusion on the basis of the facts we found that there was strong evidence to establish that numerous serious violations of international law, both humanitarian law and human rights law, were committed by Israel during the military operations in Gaza. The mission concluded that actions amounting to war crimes, and possibly in some respects crimes against humanity, were committed by the Israel Defense Force.
So we're here on Samuni family land. Goldstone came out a couple days ago and wrote an op-ed piece basically saying that if he knew then, during the time that he was writing the Goldstone report, if he knew then what he knows now, then he would have done it differently. He mentioned the Samuni family specifically in this op-ed piece, and effectively said that what happened here on the Samuni family land, the massacre, the murder of 29 family members, essentially that it was a mistake, that this was an accident, and ultimately that war crimes were not committed here. So I'm here to ask some of the Samuni family members, what do they think about Goldstone's recent writings?
إسرائيليين هيك لكل جميع أنحاء العالم دندنا، لكن يا للأسف ما فيش ناس يعني اتنصرنا على هالعدو هذا اللي سواه فينا، ولا محكمة لاهاي تحكم حكمها على المجرمين اللي ارتكبوا الجرائم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Okay, he's saying that we spent the last 60 years with the silence of the world, the silence of the internationals. At the last Kastler, we thought that they will step up, that they will talk, they will raise their voices, they will say something. People, women, kids were murdered here, and many of them. If this happened in Israel, or if any Israeli kid or any Israeli man or woman killed or even injured, all the world will step up. Why is that happening? Because we are Palestinians? Because we don't have rights? Why is this happening? I don't know why this is happening. I don't know why the world stays silent till now. Wow.
Lay in rubble for days, watching their brothers bleed to death around them. Well, they are the children of the Samuni family, and now there is concern whether more children are out there in Gaza growing in the rubble and hurt, and wondering if help will ever come to them.
كان ما مرقوش علينا واحنا اطفال صغار كليتنا وشافونا بعينهم واحنا 18 نفر في غرفه واحده وقعدوا يتخذوا علينا ما عدموش جوزي قدامنا واحنا هيك.
She's saying if it was an accident, why they could enter our home with 18 members in it and kill my husband, murder him in front of all of these kids.
Well, the tragedy began to unfold on Sunday in Zaytun, an area on the outskirts of Gaza City. Israeli troops reportedly ordered about 100 members of the Samuni family into a single building nearby for their own safety. Just 24 hours later, the building was shelled.
مش حادث يعني ظلم هذا ظلم واختاروا يعني بالعامد هم ليش يعني حطونا ببيت واحد ويجوا هدموا علينا البيت. ايش ذنبهم الأطفال والشيوخ والنسوان يعني ايش كانوا يحاربوا هذولا ما كانوش يحاربوا ايش ذنبهم.
How could this action be an accident while they put women, kids and men in one house and they start to shoot at them and shell them and then they destroyed the house and they are inside? She's saying it could not be an accident.
He witnessed what many are calling a massacre and then was left for days amidst the dead bodies of his mother and 4 brothers. The horror 16-year-old Ahmed Samuni has seen was hard for him to put into words, but the effects are written all over his face.
It was the 3rd missile I remember. The other ones had killed my elder brother and injured people. They kept bleeding. But the 3rd missile, that killed them all. My brother was bleeding so much, and right in front of my eyes, he died. My other brother, Ismail, he also bled to death. And my mother and my youngest brother, they are gone. 4 brothers and my mother, dead. May God give them peace.
Well, God give them peace. That's what we hope. And we hope that God will give peace to everyone in the world, including the Israelis themselves that are basically killing civilians and don't have anyone in the world that can actually stand up to help those people. We can't, really. There is no one in the world that can actually stand up and help them, because unfortunately, like I always say, and I've said this, and I'm going to say it now, I only have like 1 minute left, but I came from a country, and I have repeated this many times and write it down. I came from a country that was militarily occupied by Israel, to the land of the free and the brave, to find that it is also occupied politically by the same people, the Israelis, because that is the fact, ladies and gentlemen. That is exactly what is happening here to us in the United States. They, over there, the Palestinians, know who actually is occupying them. They know who is making their lives hell. It's the guys with the guns, the guys and the girls of the Israeli army offensive force that is actually killing them. But over here, you don't see them. We see the effect of controlling this country here over there. We see the effect of controlling the United States in Iraq. We see it in Afghanistan. We see it all over the place because they are using the United States as the tool to commit their murders. We are, the United States, we are pulling the triggers for the Israelis. We're paying for the bullet and we protect them even after the murder. That's all we have for you tonight. All we have time to say is good night and
see you next Thursday.
There you go.
Bye-bye. My turn.